Welcome in to the Inquirer podcast. It's Jeremy Werner and Kyle Tausk here to recap an Illinois and react to an Illinois 87-73 win over Texas Rio Grande Valley, the final bye game leading into 5 straight power conference opponents. Illinois heads to New York City on Wednesday as they will prepare for 2 days in New York City for number 5 Yukon. And Kyle, this was a tougher than expected out. These Vaqueros from the Southland Conference, which Underwood is so familiar with the Southland Conference as he dominated with a 53-1 record, I believe, when he was at Stephen F. Austin. It's insane. It's why he became the Oklahoma State coach, which led to him coming to Illinois, and very good things for the Fighting Illini. But not great effort, not great connectivity for Illinois. And the one thing I kept thinking about was, boy, this gives Brad Underwood all the ammo he wants. He's probably licking his chops to go over the film in practice tomorrow with his team, because this was sloppy, this was disconnected, and it just didn't look like they played as hard as their opponent, Kyle.
No, it didn't. Yeah, it was definitely a sluggish game, and you kind of had a feeling going in. I mean, I wrote it in the 3 keys and a pick. Like, it's a classic look-ahead spot. Like, this is the last bye game. It's a one-day prep. You've got 5 high major games coming up after this. All the talk is about UConn on Friday, and this is just kind of one of those games where you have to get through it. And they got through it, but it didn't look all that pretty. And yeah, it just felt like the effort, the energy wasn't there. Credit to Rio Grande Valley. They played harder than Illinois. They were really scrappy, really tough and physical on the ball. Went in, got some offensive rebounds on a matchup that probably should not have happened. A very, very small team, but they were just outworking Illinois for some of those loose balls and rebounds. And they played really hard, and Illinois really didn't. Now that there's a lot of teams out there in the country that you play with this amount of effort, and 4 of your 5 starters don't play well, you're in danger of losing this game. And it didn't feel like Illinois was ever in danger of truly losing this game, because I think you just have too much depth and offensive talent, but not a very inspiring effort leading into what's going to be a big-time game on Friday. So I would agree with you. It's going to be quite the week of practice, I would imagine, for Brad Underwood.
Yeah, and I would imagine at Madison Square Garden they come out a little bit more inspired. But yeah, sure. The physicality from UTRGV really stood out to me. They took it to Illinois right away, got into them, forced a lot of turnovers. Illinois had 11 turnovers in this. UTRGV had only 4. And then just the offensive rebounds, man. It gave up 11 offensive rebounds to this undersized team, and they scored 12 second chance points out of that. And Kyle, they just never really ran away with this game. I mean, they got up to 19 late in the second half, as Andrej Stojakovic will talk about with our hits and misses here, was sensational again offensively, getting to the rim, but just never really a rhythm in this one offensively. And then defensively, it just didn't look like they cared all that much in this one, and Brad's going to be all over them for that. And he said after the game, like, one thing that's non-negotiable with me is effort. And I think we saw some guys. He called out Davin Mirkovic for effort tonight. A lot of guys that you wanted to play a little bit more. Kylan Boswell only played 25 minutes tonight. I thought this was a really uninspired game from Kylan Boswell. So, I think the next few days of practice are going to be entertaining if we could be a fly in the wall, Kyle.
Yeah, no doubt. I know he wasn't quite as spicy with you guys there, but his post-game interview with Bruce Weber was pretty funny. Not a very happy
That's a miss, by the way. It's a miss. I thought Brad was going to give us a great press conference. And
I did too.
He was great as always, but I thought he was going to give us an all-timer and get after him. Not as much. Bruce got to see it all.
Yeah, you might have to pull some of the quotes from the Bruce interview. He said they were doo-doo. Defensively, we didn't try. Bunch of guys just didn't show up. He wasn't happy, and rightfully so. Look, it's obviously a tough spot on the schedule, but that's no excuse to come out and play with just the lack of effort and focus in a lot of things. Brad hit on scouting report errors in the post game that really disappointed him. They just made a lot of defensive mistakes in this game. Just didn't feel like they were very engaged. And I mean, 4 of your 5 starters in this game, as I said earlier, other than Andrej Stojakovic, like Kylan Boswell, just didn't play well tonight. David Mirkovic didn't feel like he gave great effort tonight. Keaton Wagler had an off night. And Tomislav Ivasic we'll talk about in the hits and misses as well. Just doesn't look all that right. Did get the 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, but he's moving slow out there and not playing like quite the same guy. So look, you get through it. You still win by 14. You build a decent lead there in the second half. Never really separated, put them away. But now we'll really get to see how this team responds and learn a lot more here upcoming. And I'm sure Brad will definitely enjoy himself getting after these guys after that one.
All right, for our live YouTubers, if you got a question, send those in. If you super chats, we always appreciate those. But let's dive into our hits and misses. And my hit tonight is that we are going to have a spicy topic on our hands, and that's what is Mihailo Petrovic's role on this team? Because he did not play until the 14th minute of this game, 13th or 14th minute of this game. He was the 10th player on the court for Illinois, and which says, whoa, where's he sit in this rotation? But then he comes in, immediately hits a three, creates for his teammates, had one bad turnover in transition, but clearly sparked the offense here, Kyle, in the half court. He is undeniably great with the ball in his hands. I do think there's going to be some turnovers you have to deal with that. He had 2 tonight, but Mihailo Petrovic in 16 minutes, 12 points, 4 assists, probably should have had 3 or 4 more if his teammates would have made the shots, because he created so many open shots. He's already a fan favorite because he's so exciting. He is such an exciting player, but the fact that he didn't get in until that late in the game tells me Brad Underwood doesn't know kind of where he's at. And I asked Brad Underwood, what is his role? And he said, I don't know, to be honest with you. We're still figuring all this rotation out. Mihailo, it was nice to have him when other players didn't play well. Keaton Wagler, Kyle and Boswell. So you need that third guard. I think he's got to be that third guard. But does Brad trust him? Does his staff trust him? With some of the other deficiencies he has defensively and on the rebounding, but undeniable offensive talent, Kyle.
Really, really impressive offensively. And it's what we expected. This is a really high-level point guard, a really elite ball screen operator, and we saw that tonight. And like you said, I should have had probably 8 assists in this game with some of the shots he was creating. It just felt like on a night where there was some stagnation offensively, and there was a lot of times out there which felt like nobody was moving and possessions were stalling out. Petrovic came in, just created open shots almost every time the ball touched his hands, whether that was for himself, where we saw him really attack the rim. His speed jumps off the screen. Watching on TV, like, he is really, really quick. I liked seeing him get out and transition a couple times, especially in the first half. He turned it over on one, and then he hit Andrej Stojakovic for a dunk on one where it's just a long rebound, and you could see that ability. And just a high-level passer who's always got his eyes up the floor. Love how he just gets the ball from side to side just to create advantages, always looking to the weak side, try to find a shooter, whether it's off a drive or just coming off a ball screen. He's really, really talented offensively and is a guy that has played point guard for a long time at a high level. And it's a really intriguing piece on this team. He's going to help this team quite a bit. There's no question about it. But I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation and something that we'll have to monitor here as you got 5 straight games against quality opponents. What does his role look like? And how does he fit in with all these other guys? Because the offense changes when he's in the game, and sometimes that's for good, and sometimes maybe, when you're facing teams that are a little bit better scouting with better athletes, longer defenders that throw different ball screen coverages at you, we'll see what that looks like. But it's really intriguing, and we'll see. I honestly don't have a good feel for what that's going to look like. I think it's going to evolve as time goes on, but based on what Brad Underwood said and based on the fact that he came in so late, and I think it's going to be an evolving process with him. And I think there's going to be games where he helps this team a lot, but we'll see how consistent that role is on a team that still does have a lot of guys in front of him and a lot of depth.
Yeah, I mean, especially with a Wagler off night. I mean, 2 for 11, 1 for 6 from 3. Kudos to him. He doesn't turn it over. Still rebounds the ball. 8 rebounds tonight for Keaton Wagler. So that's the consistent things. And Brandon Lee, I can tell why the coaching staff likes him, because when he comes in, he does not disrupt things. He just plays his role. He cuts. He runs the court. He gets 4 points that way. He gives them a big body defensively and a big body that can go get some rebounds. And Keaton Wagler is really consistent in all those other things. I think that's what Brad's going to have to figure out, is how do I get Petrovic to do enough of those little things where I can trust him, because offensively he just adds another gear. So he's got to be a part of this. I think he's got to be kind of that 6th man, that third guard for you. But we saw it on the BTN camera, right? Like Petravic clapped back at one of the assistant coaches. I think it was Jeff Alexander. So I'm sure there's some frustration with him with his role, but he's got to earn that too through some of these other things. But the offense is so tantalizing, man. You add that to what you already have and what he could do for Zvonimir. Saw what he did with Zvonimir tonight, getting him some of those pick and pop threes. Great pass in transition to Mirkovic. He just fits it in these tiny areas, which could turn into turnovers at some point. But there is a little bit of Curbelo in there, but Curbelo was a pretty good defender, pretty good rebounder. Petrovic doesn't have those things, but you hope he's a little bit more consistent decision maker. So it's just going to be fascinating, Kyle. He's going to be one of the more fascinating stories and one of the more hot button issue stories, because I think the fans are going to want him on the court a little bit more than Brad does at times.
Yeah, for sure. I could tell tonight. There's a lot of excitement about him from the fan base, rightfully so. I mean, he was really good tonight, and they needed him on a night where there wasn't a lot else working other than Andrej Stojakovic, who was awesome, but he was their best offensive creator by far on the floor tonight. And I get it. He's an exciting player, and he's a guy that's definitely has a skill set that's different than all the other guards you have on this team. But I've seen people say like, oh, now it's time to really lower Keaton Wagler's minutes and, start Mihailo Petrovic. Like I'd pump the brakes on that a little bit, because I like you said, look, Keaton wasn't good tonight. He was great on Saturday, by the way. And some people have been saying, he's starting to struggle here a little bit. I get it. He hasn't been great against high major competition. I just think there's a steadiness to what he brings. And like you said, with his rebounding, with his length, with his defensive ability, like you think about some of the lineups, like against UConn on Friday, close game late, what lineup do you want to close with? Well, Keaton Wagler is probably part of your best defensive lineup. He's definitely a part of your best rebounding lineup. Like there's other considerations there for as good as Mihailo Petrovic is offensively. I'm not saying he's a total disaster at some of these other things. I think he's quick enough to not be awful on defense. We'll see how that goes, but I think it's going to be a balancing act for Brad Underwood there. And I do think that we'll see some things adjusted here and the rotation look a little bit different and things evolve over time. But I think Petrovic is an enticing player in what he can do, but I'd pump the brakes a little bit on some people getting a little carried away on that. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see. I understand it. I absolutely understand it. We'll see though coming up here. We'll get a better feel for it.
Figuring out the rotation, it's going to be one of the big stories of the next month. These next 5 games, figuring out that rotation, how you get Tommy back into this thing. Because, I mean, Andre and Mihailo, best offensive players by far tonight, but the offense does stop a little bit when they get the ball. It's just a little different. Doesn't mean it's bad, because you need that sometimes, but it's just a little bit different. So working those guys in and figuring it all out, it's going to be interesting to watch, fun to watch. All right, give me a hit or a miss, Kyle. What do you want to go with?
I think we should probably go to a miss here. I just think defensively it was a poor night tonight, and I think we saw some of the flaws that we knew this roster had. It's a tough matchup defensively for Illinois because Rio Grande Valley plays so small. I mean, they have is it Brankovic?
I called him Dad Bod. Philip Brankovic.
Yeah, he does.
He had a build similar to my fellow dads out there, and he was a baller, man. He was a baller, shooting those threes, those pick and pops. Serbian. Mihailo, I took a picture with him before, but yeah, he did really well tonight. 15 points, 3 or 4 from 3.
Yeah, they have him. He was a teammate of Mihailo's on the Serbian U20 national team, I think, in 2023. So yeah, he's a good player. But when they didn't have him on the floor, they were just so small. And even with, when he was on the floor, I mean, they play 4 guards a lot of the time. And it's just such a tough matchup for Illinois because you had Kai Dixon in the second half, who's 6'7", kind of wing. He's just toasting Illinois' front court off the dribble. He really,
I thought about making him my star of the game, Kyle. He was so good. He was so active, and I thought he just outplayed Illinois, out-hustled him at times.
He did. He was good, but he was beating David Mirkovic, Big Z, off the dribble when he got some of those matchups like we saw against a smaller team that had some guards that were playing hard, playing fast. Like Illinois' front court wasn't very good on the defensive end of the floor. And then you look at some of the other things, like there were scouting report mistakes. There were just losing shooters, not closing out. That was something that we saw in the second half against Long Island on Saturday. This team's given up quite a few open threes here recently, which is something that they have not done under Brad Underwood. And some of that is the give and take of some of the different things and, being a little bit more aggressive on defense. They look a little different, but there have been some wide open threes that this team has allowed to the last three opponents. Now, Bama's going to do that. That's who they are. But even in these last two bye games, like there's just been losing some really good shooters and allowing some open shots. And I just think there hasn't been great focus defensively in some of the things they're trying to do. So wasn't a very good night on that end of the floor. And I think we saw some of the deficiencies of this roster makeup exposed on that end, just with the lack of speed and athleticism in the front court. But you really didn't get great defensive performances from the perimeter guys either. I didn't think Boswell was his usual self on that end either. So that's something that we'll have to see, because you know what, you're playing a team that is really, really good and really well coached offensively, that's going to run sets to death on Friday at Madison Square Garden. And if you're not communicating, if you're not focused, if you're making mistakes, it's going to be a problem.
I love Colin Boswell. I felt like he was unmotivated tonight. Like I didn't think he set the tone on either end of the floor. Settled 5 of his shots were 3-pointers, settled for those. Got to the free throw line 4 times, but just wasn't in attack mode. Only drew 2 fouls offensively, and then just defensively. I'm kind of getting tired of them just giving up switches defensively. Like not like Alabama, like Colin Boswell just gave up the switch. Like they got to use him more. Like they got to use him as a weapon more. So against UConn, against those guards, man, solo ball and some of those, like I want to see Kylan just get over those screens, fight through them, and not give up those switches, because Alabama was able to take advantage of those tonight. Rio Grande Valley did that. I want him more aggressive on the ball and not just giving up those switches. So that's just something I want to see. But I just wanted your team leader to be a little bit more locked in tonight. I didn't think he was, and it gave us a better look at Petravic at the very least. But Boswell's got to be the guy leading that defense, holding guys accountable during the game. If there's a scouting report error, that's the things I want to see. I thought the one positive defensively, and we can get into this a little bit later, but I thought Zaneir Ivicic showed some leadership tonight outside of his rim protection. Like you could see him and hear him talking the entire game. And he said that was really unnatural to him before he got here. And now you could see him communicating defensively. So I thought he was more locked in, and it can be up and down with Z, game to game. And I thought he was pretty locked in tonight. So he was the one guy defensively I want to mention. And I'll get to another positive defensively here in a little bit, but that's going to be the bulk of practice. I think, settling for a lot of threes tonight, I think might bother Brad Underwood a little bit, but I think defensively is where he really wants to focus.
Yeah, to go back to the switching point, I couldn't agree more. I don't really understand it with this roster. And I get selectively, like when there's perimeter guys, like if you're switching between Wagler and Stoyakovich, if you're switching between 2 of your front court guys, like there's selective switching that I think can work. And I get the idea of trying to keep the ball in front, but I don't totally understand how much they're doing it so far, especially with Boswell. Like obviously in the Alabama game, just didn't get that late, where you got LeBaron Philon who's cooking you in the second half, top 10 NBA draft prospect, and Zaneir Ivicic is matched up with him on the perimeter on a must-stop possession late in the game. And I get that Kylan Boswell had 4 fouls, but you got to let your best defender guard their best player. Like and they're also just not executing the switches all that great. And I think part of that is just the chemistry and, Stoyakovich having not been in there and some of that, but they're busting switches at times too. And they're just not communicating well enough. We saw that late in the Bama game. There's a couple times tonight where guy was just way behind the play because he didn't think they were switching. They were, and they're just not really executing it all that cleanly either. So I don't totally get it. I think I'd prefer to just man up against especially some of these better teams, especially late in the game, especially with your guards, with your best defenders like Kylan Boswell. You got to unleash him and let him guard. And they just haven't done that as much as I would have expected. I like seeing that they're doing some different things, and I think that there's certain matchups where that can be effective, but I also think with a front court that's going to have problems guarding in space, I don't want those matchups with guards as much as they're giving them up.
Yeah, I think this is part of the process for Cam Crocker too, right? Like we've seen some different things. They played zone for a couple possessions tonight. Brad said, I'm surprised you in the media didn't have a heart attack. I pointed at him. I'm surprised he hasn't had a heart attack doing some of these things. Makes sense when Petravic and Z are in the game, guys who maybe, man to man aren't the best defenders, but he's figuring this out too, Cam Crocker, of what my guys can and can't do. I want to go with another miss here. Tommy's still working through it, man. And it's my impatience, but they need him to get right quick. Going up against the schedule they're going to have. It was nice to see him make a 3 late in the game, get a little confidence. But before that 3, he was 1 for 5 from 3. He was 2 for 6 from the floor, 5 rebounds in 22 minutes, a couple turnovers where he still just looks like he's gassed on some of them, Kyle. And he still looks like he's really out of shape, which I get. He's not been doing much for 6 weeks. But they need Tomislav Ivičić to be all Big Ten center, Tomislav Ivičić within the next month. And it's going to be a process. I know it's me being impatient, but that needs to happen. And I thought he took a small step forward probably than what he was the other night, Kyle, but is it quick enough to where they're going to get the Tomislav Ivičić they need over the next couple of weeks? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. He just doesn't look right, looks slow. Like you said, out of shape, just not moving great, not super confident with the ball in his hands. He's bringing it down a lot, loose with it. Just a guy that's
not playing like he's 7 foot, right?
Right. Yeah. And even a couple times early in the game, he had matchups where Brankovic would switch off of him and he had a guard on him, just didn't really want the ball. And that's kind of what I thought coming into the game. Like, it's such a small team. Could he get him some opportunities where you just throw it into him, let him try to get some easy buckets? They didn't really do that. He was floating on the perimeter a lot. Jump shot didn't look great until that last one, and he's still obviously trying to get his legs back there. But yeah, it's tough. He doesn't look right, and I think it's still going to take some time for him to look right. Problem is you don't really have time anymore after this game, so I'll be interested to see what the center deployment is like against a UConn team who is going to watch the tape of Tomislav Ivičić's last 3 games, and Dan Hurley and that staff is going to attack him as much as they can. I promise you that. Him and David. Yeah, good point. Really, really good point there. So I get, Z can get attacked.
Taurus Reed is coming, man. Taurus Reed is coming.
Z at least has the length and the athleticism to recover a little bit better and to bother shots more and be a little bit more active than Tommy. So I'm really interested to see that because I think you need Tommy, and I think he's going to slowly work his way back. He's still a really good player that once he gets the conditioning back to where it needs to be and starts to get some confidence offensively, I have no doubts that he's still going to be one of this team's best players. But right now, it doesn't look great. And I do think Z is a better option right now at center. Now, I will see how that progresses. But against UConn, I'll be interested to see that because if Tommy is still moving the way he is, especially defensively, that's not a guy that I think he can play 25 minutes in that game comfortably with what UConn's going to do. So we'll see. It's you don't have any more bye games now. You would really hope to see. Obviously, it was understandable in the Bama game to see him look the way he did. The hope was in these last 2 games, you'd start to see him look more like his old self. Didn't really happen. And so that's a concern now going into UConn and Tennessee these next 2 games. I think that week off after UConn leading into Tennessee will be huge for him. But I'm interested to monitor what that usage looks like from Underwood on Friday because I think it's still going to take some time for Tommy.
Just to go into a positive off of that, you do have Z. And
yes.
I think it's inconsistent. Don't know what I'm going to get out of him in a given night. But tonight it was really good. 10 points, 7 rebounds. Obviously way taller than anybody else on the court. Made his threes, 2 out of 4. But man, his impact at the rim is huge. He led the team with a plus 20 tonight. But I just thought his activity, as I said, his voice defensively was great. He only had 1 block, Kyle. I think he altered 7 or 8 shots at the rim tonight. So he does give you something different, something defensively where Tommy is really struggling on that end right now. I think Tommy offensively from his shot is usually a little bit more consistent, but Z can get hot. So if Z gets hot in one of these next 2 games, if Tommy still isn't quite himself, then I think you can pull one of them out because he's a good enough center to impact it. It's just going to be inconsistent.
Yeah, for sure. I've really been impressed with what Z's done here these last 2 games. Coming off 2 games, obviously he had the knee situation there, but really just wasn't very good. He had averaged 3 rebounds or 3 points, 2 rebounds, and a half a block a game over the Colgate and Alabama games, and he's really responded. I think he's been impactful. I mean, defensively, he's really impactful. Even like you said, when he's not blocking shots, his presence, his rim protection is real. And that's the thing. Obviously, he has his limitations in space, but he also has the ability to recover better than any of the other Illini front court guys and still finish the play and impact it. And obviously the shooting and the spacing is there with him. And I just think he's been more active on the glass here recently and has played a little bit more physical. Like I think he's in a good spot right now and gives you a really, really good insurance policy to Tommy as you work him along, because you don't have to rely on Tommy so heavily coming up here. If he still isn't himself, you can turn to Z. And I think that's just such a luxury to have for this team. But I've really been impressed with these last 2 games, especially on the defensive end from Z, and just not forcing it, not trying to do too much on the offensive end, but playing his role well. I think it's been impressive here and super encouraging.
13th in the country with a 13.1% block rate. It's insane. All right, next one, hit or miss, Kyle. What do you got?
Go to a hit. Andrej Stojakovic, another 20-plus point game. He's done that in, 4 of the 6 games he's played so far.
4 out of the last 5 he's played.
4 out of the last 5. Yeah, he is a bucket getter, man. He is really, really good. Can we talk about for a second? I have the updated stats here. His efficiency and finishing at the rim, 58.8% field goal percentage for him so far this year, 68.2% from 2 for him so far this year. It's really impressive, man. Like,
can you say what that's improved from? 47.8% last year at Cal, 47% at Stanford.
He is playing at a really high level. He looks different. Like he's always been a really, really good scorer, but just the effortlessness that he is getting the ball to the rim, using his body, the patience he has, but just the fact that he can get downhill in 2 seconds and be at the rim and use his length and size. Like he is really, really impressive. When he gets a matchup he likes, ball is going in the bucket right now. Like it's impressive to see. And he's kind of the human drought stopper. Like you just get it into his hands, you need a bucket, and he's going to find you one. And
a lot of similarities to Marcus Damask in that way, isn't he?
Yes,
like
very different scorers, but in that way, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because Terrence could be streaky on that team. Will Riley, streaky, flashy, but like Damask was just like, yeah, he'll score every couple minutes for you. That's what Andrej is. But I agree, it's a very different kind of scorer because he gets to the rim, right? He gets over people. And can I say a hit is Brad using the term elite and not being full of BS on it. Like Andrej Stojakovic's athleticism is elite. The way he got up on some of those dunks, Kyle. So not full of BS on that elite from Brad Underwood in the offseason.
Yeah, that one dunk in the second half, he was really high. And his strides he's just impressive. He moves impressively. Everything about him offensively right now is impressive. He's as good of an individual scorer and shot creator as I think I've seen at Illinois, because it's just, Damask is in that mix, but it just the way how effortlessly he can get his body to the rim and finish, and the efficiency in which he's finishing at different angles with both hands. Like it's just, there's a lot in his bag right now, and he's a matchup nightmare one-on-one. He's unguardable one-on-one. Now, the one thing that I want to see from him now, and I'm curious to see how it progresses as you see better competition now, is I think there's going to be a second body waiting there for him a lot more often now with what you've seen. Can he make the right read out of that? Can he pass it and start to show those things? Because that's what Marcus Damask is really good at. When teams started sending doubles and started being a little bit more aggressive with their help, he was really good at reading the floor and finding open shooters. Can Andrej get there too? Because I think he's going to start to see more bodies thrown his way. Now he's so quick and can get to the rim so quickly that sometimes you don't even have time to send help on him, and he's just going to beat a guy to the rim. But that's the one thing I want to see, because another 0 assist night tonight. I thought he had a couple good passes to guys who didn't make shots, but that's kind of the next step for him. As good of a scorer as he is, I think it's going to get a little bit tougher for him now when you see the Yukons and the Tennessees of the world. Can he take a step forward just from reading plays and playing out of the attention that he's going to command? But he's really, really impressive as a scorer, and the efficiency jump that he's taken so far. Not from three, hasn't shot it well from three, hasn't had to take a lot of them though, because he's been so dang dominant at the rim. So another great performance from him tonight.
Yeah, the next step for him, making some of those threes, Kyle, and also when teams sag off him, if he doesn't start hitting them more. I mean, he's 26.3% from three so far this year, 1 for 5 for tonight. It's weird to say with a Stoyakovich, but like they could sag off him a little bit more, protect that drive, but he can still get to a spot, right? He can still figure a way to get to a spot, rise over people, and score. So I'm not going to be too worried about him scoring, but just that's the next step for him, is doing some of that. I do like that he's rebounding a little bit more, 6 rebounds in this game. So yeah, Andre at the rim was one of my hits, 11 for 12. The other thing I want to say is another use of Brad's elite. I don't think people are ready for this one quite yet, because Brad said it tonight. He said Hurkous is becoming an elite perimeter defender. There's questions about some players who play hard tonight. There's no question with Hurkous. And he needs to make shots. We'll continue saying that. He needs to make more shots. He's not shooting it well. He was 0 for 2 tonight, 0 for 2 from 3. Passed up a couple looks too. But, man, he had 8 rebounds, and he played phenomenal defense. Like he is so locked in there, Kyle. He's locked in on giving you rebounds that even when he's not making shots, which he needs to do, I will repeat for all the people out there, he is giving you positives, and like he is finding ways to impact the game and help his team. So he's a role player, needs to make more shots, but I love the energy, effort, and focus on the other things that Hurkous is bringing when he doesn't make shots.
That was the next hit I had. I'm so glad you brought it up, because it deserves a lot of credit. It's been noticeable, and I understand the fact that he still is not shooting. He's not making enough open shots that you would want to see him hit, and that's something that he'll have to do. And he had so many of those looks against Alabama. Had 2 good ones tonight, didn't make them. Understand that, but he has taken a huge step forward from last year on the defensive end. Just his effort in other areas. He's not a guy where if he's not making shots, he's a nothing for you, which was pretty much the case last year. That has not at all been the case. I think he's been impactful in every game this year. And that Alabama game, he was your best front court defender. I think the last 2 games,
By
the last
far,
2 games,
he's
other
by
than Big
far
Z,
your best perimeter defender. Yeah, Z.
Yeah,
but like other than
perimeter
that, like,
defender.
compared to David Mirkovic and Tomislav Ivicic right now, boy, he's way better than them defensively.
Absolutely, yeah, and he's had some tough matchups too. Like tonight, he's guarding guards because Rio Grande Valley is going small. He's staying in front of him. He's competing. Same thing against Alabama. Like he's been putting some tough matchups that last year it's just not going well for Illinois. And this year he is really battling, and he's actually using his height. He's 6'9", and he's playing like it this year. He's blocking shots. He's altering shots. Like he's taken a huge leap defensively from last year, and it deserves to be given a lot of credit. And the rebounding effort has been consistent this year. 6 of 7 games, he's had 5 or more rebounds. The only game he didn't have 5 or more was Saturday against Long Island when he had 3. He's rebounding. He's given you offensive rebounds, but he's clearing possessions defensively. He's not running back looking to get to the 3-point line. He's getting in there and rebounding, and using his size. And you can see the extra bulk that he added in the offseason, the 25 pounds, like that's showing up. He's playing more physical and not backing away from that. While still, I question whether that was going to be a good thing or whether it was going to make him even slower on the perimeter. It hasn't. He's been better there. So Hurkous deserves credit for that side of the ball, because I think he's been really, really good, and he'll have to shoot it better for sure. But the fact that he can still impact games and be a hit on a night where he had 0 points on 0 for 2 from 3 speaks to the improvement he's made.
Defensive rebound rate last year, 10.4. Awful for a 4. He's almost doubled that so far this year. Now, the opponents will get better, but 18.3% defensive rebound rate. He doesn't turn it over. He doesn't commit fouls. He's blocking way more shots so far this year. He's doubled his block rate. So there's encouraging things elsewhere with Hurkous's game right now. All right, got any more before we wrap this up, Kyle?
Miss is 3-point shooting. On a night tonight where they did settle too much. They got a lot of open shots that they missed. Since the Florida Gulf Coast game, that second game of the season, Illinois is shooting 30.6% from three. For comparison, last year's team on the season shot 31.3%, which ranked outside the top 300. So it has not been a good shooting stretch for this team. After a good start to the season in those first two games, making 17 threes on opening night against Jackson State, there's some questions about how well this team can shoot it from three. Now, they haven't been as reliant, even close, so far this year because they've been so good at getting to the rim, and they've gotten so much rim pressure, and not having Tommy out there, and not getting a lot of shooting from your front court, which I thought was supposed to be your strength, and you haven't really gotten. Mirkovic hasn't really taken many here recently. Hurkous hasn't shot it great. Like, you're not getting a lot of attempts from those guys, but this team isn't shooting it all that well right now, and there's some guys that are struggling. Stoyakovich, Mirkovic has been up and down. Obviously, Tommy is still getting his legs back. Hurkous is right now shooting 36%. You'd like to see that improve. Jake Davis in his minutes hasn't shot it all that well. Did go 1 for 1 tonight. Boswell's struggling. Boswell's really struggling from three. So that's something to monitor here, because we felt like this was going to be a better shooting team than last year, even if it, we'll see what that looks like. They're not as reliant as last year. We know that. And so I think that's going to be a positive. But it's been a struggle here lately. And tonight was a night where they left a lot of points at the 3-point line without question.
If you had to guess, I hope you don't have the stats in front of you. Who are the top 3-point shooters on this team?
Well, Keaton Wagler went 1 for 6 tonight. So is it Hurkous?
He's third at 35.1%. The other two are related.
The Ivisic brothers.
Yeah,
Tommy had a great opening night. That pads it a little bit.
Zaneir is 9 for 23. He's 39.1%. Tommy is 6 for 15. He's 40%. Ben 13 for 37. He's 35%. I'll take that over an entire season if those guys want to hit that. But Wagler's 32%. Mirkovic 30.8%. Boswell, after just a torrid start, right? Like, it was great those first 3 games. I think he's 2 for 16 his last 4 games, and he's now shooting 33%, and Andrej Stojakovic 26.3%. So yeah, those front court guys are the ones that are shooting it well. It's just kind of inconsistent right now.
Yeah, but those front court guys aren't necessarily shooting a super high volume of them either. Yeah. So it's, but that part of that again is a positive that you're not asking that. And that you look at some of these games here, like even on Saturday, they had 16 3-point attempts the entire game because they couldn't be stopped in the paint at 68 points in the paint. And that's where this offense is going to run through, but you got to start making some of these open shots, and you'd like some of your perimeter guys to up those percentages, because this front court shooting was supposed to be a strength of this roster, but you also want some of those perimeter guys. You're going to get a lot of shots to make them at a better clip.
I should mention Petravic is 2 for 3, but I'm not saying he's qualified yet.
Yeah, so, not qualified. What is that?
Need 10 attempts before I can qualify you for that lead for the team. But that Mihailo stepped into one right at the beginning of the game. A miss. David Mirkovic wasn't great tonight. Keaton Wagler struggled from the field. The one thing I love about Keaton, it's kind of like the Ben thing. When he's not shooting, he's giving you effort on the glass. He's giving you effort, rebound. He doesn't turn it over. So that's what I like about Wagler and Hurkous being role players. Even when they don't score, they find a way to help you. Mirkovic, the stats don't end up looking bad at 10 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I just thought his effort on the glass wasn't great, not near what it was, when you go 20 and 20. Just made some really bad decisions, some bad turnovers. Just not great effort from David tonight. I think he'll bounce back, but part of being a freshman, and Brad sat him on the bench for a big chunk of this game because of it.
Yeah, and he did the same on Saturday as well, which ended up being a decent game for him with 12 points and 8 rebounds. But defensively, Brad was not happy with him on Saturday, pulled him a couple times for that, and he's struggling on that end. And look, that's going to be a concern with his game, and just especially some of the matchups as you play smaller teams and teams that have, quicker, more athletic guys at the floor. That's going to be really tough for him, and we'll have to see what that looks like. But but he'll have better offensive nights. Not worried about that. Obviously, I think he's been consistent. Didn't force it. That's what I've liked about these last two games. Even on nights where he hasn't been his best, he's still shooting 7 for 9 from the floor over the last two games. So he's not forcing up wild shots, or he's not settling for threes like he was early in the year, knowing that he's a guy who's probably not going to shoot them at a super high clip. So 5 assists tonight. Thought he passed it well and did some good things. But yeah, it's the defensive side is where the real concern is going to be for him, and something that I do expect the Yukons and Tennessees of the world to attack pretty heavily, and he'll have to have an answer for that.
Well, here we go, Kyle. UConn, top 15 matchup yet again for Illinois. They've already had, what would it be, top 20? It'd be 3 of these after Saturday. Black Friday game at Madison Square Garden, another game at the Garden for Illinois. It's interesting. Andrej Stojakovic said he's never been to New York, which is crazy for a guy. Yeah, with a guy with that pedigree. Wow. I thought he just said Madison Square Garden, but all the other beat writers said he'd never been to New York, which is crazy. I know he's a California kid, but he's never played in that arena. Zaneir has. Some of these other guys that played last year, Boswell and Tommy have. I'm sure they want to get that taste out of their mouth after last year's beatdown from Duke. But we know UConn is capable of that, and is a really, really good team. Did lose a game so far this year, but Taurus Reed, remember him from Michigan, has turned into a star, averaging about 20 and 10 so far this year. Alex Caravan from that Elite 8 team is still there, the team that won the national championship. Solo ball, really good guard, tough guard. Silas Demery comes over from Georgia, is playing really well for them. And we'll see if Braylon Mullins, their 5-star freshman, who's missed time with an ankle injury, if he'll be back for this one. But clearly one of the best teams in the country, another legit national title contender. Only losses to Arizona, who looks like one of the best teams in the country, 71-67 in that one. And it's going to be Store South there, man. That's what they call Madison Square Garden, because that fan base shows up in droves. So it's going to be a huge advantage for UConn. Of course, they come back to United Center next year. But we'll talk more about this with Michael Tulip later in the week. But Kyle, just your impressions of what this matchup will be like for Illinois. What do you want to see?
Yeah, the injury situation will be one to monitor for them, because Taurus Reed's been out the last 2 games, including yesterday with an injury, and he missed that Arizona game, which was a big reason I think they lost that game. They gave up. Koa Pete had a huge game, and they just don't have much in the front court there. I would be surprised if he missed that game, but he has been hurt here. And then Mullins too, he'd be a pretty big addition for them. Elite shooter, the best shooter on shooting prospect in this class without question. He is just a dynamite shooter, so that'd be pretty scary. We'll monitor that, but either way, this UConn team I'm super high on them. I think they're a total national title contender. I think Hurley's got a team that more suits what he's looking for more so than last year's team. Now he's got a point guard. I think Demery's tough and resembles a lot of what Tristan Newton gave them on those national title teams, and they're older. They're just such a talented offensive team that's so well coached and runs such great stuff on offense. Like it's a team that is going to run so many incredible sets on you that are going to really put you in conflict. They're going to attack your weaknesses. They are really going to challenge this Illinois team defensively. Some of the lapses we've seen here recently tonight, some of the different things, like that's going to be a real test for Cam Crocker here on how to handle some of this stuff and some of the things to try and disrupt the timing of UConn's offense and try to get them out of rhythm, because when they're in rhythm and they're running their stuff, they're going to beat you, and it's going to be really tough to stop them, especially if they're at full strength. So you're just going to have to see much better attention to detail, focus on the defensive end from this team. We'll see if they do anything different and exotic and what that looks like. But you also got to go score and be efficient offensively, and your stars got to show up, as we've seen. I mean, with what you got from Kylan Boswell and Andrej Stojakovic in your 2 big games so far, your veteran stars got to take over, play well, but you need the supporting contributions that you didn't get in that Alabama game, and you need guys to really show up. You need Mirkovic to bounce back. You'd love to see Tommy play a little bit better and get better production, a lot better production out of those centers than you got against Alabama, and make more shots and just play as a more connected, harder playing team than we've seen here recently, which I would expect in a game of that magnitude. I don't think that's been an issue in Illinois' big games at all. But you're going to need to come to play. UConn's tough, and that's going to be a tough environment. Much like the United Center was basically a home environment for Illinois, it's going to be equally as tough of a road environment for Illinois going to MSG there. So I'm excited to see what happens. We're going to learn a lot, but you're going to have to play your A game to beat that UConn team at MSG.
I think it's one of the toughest games remaining in your entire schedule the rest of the year because of the team, because of the coach, because of the place, the venue, and the fact that your team is still figuring itself out, even more so than others because Tommy just got back, Petravic just got back. So I think it's one of the toughest, but it's also one of the biggest opportunities. You beat this team, this is a potential number 1 seed. This would help you incredibly in March.
Oh,
so
yeah.
this is a seed boosting potential win. Don't lose a lot if you lose. That's why I love when Brad Underwood schedules these. A couple super chats before we get out, Kyle. Andrew, Def, Ben, 8 for his last 28 behind the arc, 29% clip since Jackson State. He's enjoying playing with much more physicality and can booty ball. Haven't seen much of that since Damask. So one thing I would like to see, I don't know how much booty ball I want to run through Ben because I can add Andrej Stojakovic to do that stuff. But I do like him attacking the rim more. I think he can shot fake, attack the rim. I just want him to play with confidence, whether it's pulling up and shooting that three, getting set and shooting it and showing no hesitation, or just attacking the rim because I think he's got some explosion to him once he gets into the paint. So I just want to see confidence from Ben whenever he's on offense.
Yeah, look, I think if he gets open shots, I still think that's a really good shot for Illinois. And I think he's very capable of making those shots. I get that people are tired of hearing that and they want to see that. And I still think, he still hasn't been a bad shooter here recently. Yeah. Like his career shooting, I believe, is 36% still. So when you factor in tonight, or 35.5%. So, but he needs to make more shots. But I agree with you. I think here the last couple games, I feel like he's been a little bit more hesitant to even get him up coming off that Alabama game. But I still think, I'm glad that he's starting to show more and be impactful on nights where that's not happening. I think there's still going to be nights where he makes shots and gets hot and has better shooting nights. But the fact that he's still giving you a lot of really good things, even on nights where he's not shooting it well, I think is a big improvement from last year. Because that's where I think the real frustration came in. When he's on the team to shoot, can't make shots, what is he out there for? I think he's giving you enough to still be out there, but he does have to make more shots, no question.
All right, last one from Def, another one, $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Def. Feels like another hoisting 30 trays in a game is a bad idea kind of year. Play downhill, drive and kick, drive and dish, drive and finish. For me, that's mostly Boswell. Like I want him to not settle for those threes. And tonight I felt he did that. Hasn't been a huge issue this year for him. Otherwise, like I felt like they got downhill, and I felt like Mihailo Petrovic really got them downhill and got them to good shots, and they just missed shots. Like early on they settled a little bit, and some of that was Boswell, but otherwise, like I thought Mihailo got into some really, really good looks, Kyle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the shots they got tonight were pretty good shots. They just didn't make them. I do think there were times in the game where they settled a little bit, but I think this was really one of the first games that we saw that. I don't think that's been the identity of this team. I think this team has known who they are, and it's been a lot more of an inside-out approach than it was at times last year, and they've got the guys like Boswell, Stoyakovich, now Petravic, I think are going to put a lot of pressure on the rim, get 2 feet in the paint, play out of that. That's where you want to see guys when you're getting open looks manufactured for you off of the pressure that your downhill attackers are getting for you. That's where you got to start making some of those shots. But I don't really think that's been much of an issue for this team.
All right, good stuff. We appreciate everybody joining us here on the live YouTube channel. If you could, before you get out of here, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. And we appreciate all you guys listening to us on the podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review, wherever you get your podcast. Joey will write about Petravic tonight. I'll have our player grades, and Kyle will have the preview later this week on Illinois playing at UConn. Much more coming in Illini Inquirer. We'll meet with Brad Underwood, the coordinators for Illinois football, on Tuesday. So we'll have much more coming there. Michael Tulip will join us. We'll do our preview for Northwestern. It's crossover season, so we are busy at Illini Inquirer. But we appreciate all you listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. For Kyle Tausk, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.